Good morning, dear teachers. My name is Diego Cabrera, and I will be explaining about the simple future of using will. So how we form the simple future? So for affirmative sentences, we need the subject pronoun, will, or the contraction, and the base form of the verb. For negative sentences, you need the subject pronoun plus will not, or the contraction won't, plus the base form of the verb. For interrogative or for questions, you need the double H word. If it is a question, double H question, will plus subject plus base form of the verb, and of course the question mark. So if it is a yes/no question, you need only will plus subject plus base form and the question mark, of course. Here we have more example about the form. For the affirmative, here you can see the subject pronoun, you have will, and the base form of the verb. And for contractions, you can see here in this column, the contraction for I will go would be I'll go. If you say you will play, and contraction is you'll play. So there you have he'll, she'll, it'll, you'll, will, they'll, and the base form, of course. The contraction form is more informal than the full form, which is more formal. Okay, and it is for spoken interaction. For negative, so here you have the subject pronoun, as I said before, will not, and the base form of the verb. But you can also make contraction. Will not is won't. For example, he won't study. Here, notice that when you pronounce won't, you need to pronounce the letter T at the end. Won't is very important. Now we have the question form. So we have for yes/no question, will, the subject pronoun, and the verb, and the base form of the verb, and the question mark. And for question, double H questions, you need the double H words like who, what, where, and so. Will, the subject pronoun, and the verb, and the base form of the verb with the question mark. Okay, it's pretty simple, right? So what is the meaning of the simple future? So it is used to speak about the future in general. So what is the future? The future is about things that haven't happened yet. Also, the simple future, it is used to talk about an action or condition that will begin and end in the future. So it's something that, like I said before, is something that haven't happened yet. So it is also used when we think about options and possibilities for the future. Okay? The uses. There are many uses for the simple future. And here we have the more common or the most used. Here we have the first one, rapid decisions. Rapid decisions are decisions or spontaneous decisions that you decide at that moment. For example, if you are in your house and you say, I miss my mom, I will call her right now. So at that moment, you decide to call her. That's why you need to use I'll call her right now. For promises, for example, don't worry, I will help you with your project. So you're saying, or you're giving a promise to somebody, I will help you with your project, don't worry. For offer, for example, that box looks heavy, I'll help you with that. So you're giving, you offer some help to somebody. Threat, if you say anything, I'll kill you. Prediction, I think people will live in other planets by 2080. These are like the most common uses for the future, the simple future. Here we have some anticipated problems or difficulties students face when they learn the simple future. For example, this is one of the most popular, one of the most common one. Most of the time students don't know when to use will or going to for future. They get confused and when they have the opportunity to practice will with future, they start thinking, do I have to use will or going to? So here this happens because students have not practiced the uses for the simple future. Here's an example. The phone is ringing at home, for example, and somebody said, I am going to answer. But in that situation, you have to use I'll answer, because that's like a spontaneous decision. You decide at that moment. So if you don't have enough practice for the uses of simple future, you'll get confused and you will use going to instead of using will. Okay. Another common mistake or problem, difficulty, is like add s to the third person of singular. For example, I think she'll visit her grandparents next week, instead of saying I think she will visit her grandparents next week. Remember that we use subject, will, and the base form of the verb. We don't need the s like in that happening in present, in simple present, the rule in simple present. Here I have some comprehension questions. So you can write on the board this sentence like, I'm thirsty. I will buy a bottle of water. And you can ask the student, is it an action you planned in advance, or it is a rapid decision? It is a spontaneous decision. So students may think like, what is the correct form? And why is using will, buy? I will buy. And you can also ask them, what tense do we have to use for spontaneous decisions? So you can change this spontaneous decision for what tense do we have to use for promises, for offers, for predictions, and they realize that they have to use will correctly. Another example is, oh no, I don't have enough money to pay. And the other person would say, don't worry, I'll lend you some. So you can ask the student, what's the intention when person B says, don't worry, I'll lend you some? So that is a promise, right? So they'll recognize, or you can give them the option. It is a promise, or is it a decision, a rapid decision, an offer? So they can realize and they can start thinking about the correct use of will. Here I have some teaching ideas of how we can teach this, how we can teach the simple future. Don't teach all the uses in one day, because that's too much information. And try to create meaningful activities. When I say meaningful, it's like real activities. For example, you can create a debate with the students about the changes in the future with different topics like technology, climate, transportation. And you can ask them, do you think transportation will be different by 2080? And some people or some students will say, I think cars will fly by 2080. So you're practicing here predictions. So you can create, according to the uses, you can create meaningful activities with the students. Also, make the students see the difference between will and going to, what similarities and differences they have, so they can realize and they can use the correct way to say, to use will for simple future. Thank you very much. Bye bye. I hope you enjoyed this video.